Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Vertex webinar today on connected product design. My name is Matt Hine, and I am joined by my colleague, John Heller. A little background about me before we get started. I am head of product at Vertex. I've got 20 plus years of experience in mechanical engineering, 3D product data visualization, data science, UX, and cloud computing. And I'll turn it over to John, and he can talk more about his experience.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So prior to joining Vertex, I worked for two major manufacturing companies over the course of 18 years, Dassault, Falcon Jet, and Danfoss. And across both of those companies, I had the opportunity to work in multiple different business units, starting out in engineering and product development, moving into liaising between engineering and the shop floor when it came to building designs, working through product marketing, then a stint in supply chain as well. So got a pretty good overview of some of the challenges when it comes to manufacturing and the communication issues around product data. So glad to be here today.
Thanks, John. So I'll start off and kind of set the context for what we're talking about, and then I'll hand it over to John, and he can talk about some different use cases and scenarios from some of our customers, and give you a demo of what Vertex has to offer. This is one of 6 different webinars in this connected series for Vertex. The common theme across all these webinars is the digital thread vision of having all of your people within your organization and external of your organization contributing to your digital thread and the processes and the data, and trying to really make sure that everyone's on the same page, all of it's connected to both the people and the data systems. We've done a number of webinars already, so please check those out. But today we're going to really focus on product design, and so thinking through at the early stages of collaborating with whoever is coming up with different requirements for the next version of your product or a new product offering, working with your supply chain and internal suppliers, and really making sure that you're getting all of the feedback necessary before that design gets too far along and you have to do rework and things like that. So really what we're talking about today is how do I get feedback quickly from the people that have the feedback, from a DFX standpoint, from a customer standpoint, and from your supply chain standpoint. Next. Often what we see, and both John and I have experienced this in our jobs, is that feedback mechanism to getting requirements, and even once you get your first prototype and getting feedback from different perspectives on that, often your digital thread's just a jumbled mess of different communication mechanisms or systems, and maybe all the requirements were in an email, and that email is now lost, that person's on vacation. And so oftentimes one of the main things that we see here is just that while engineering might be doing a majority of the design work, everyone has kind of a stake in that design. Yet oftentimes those departments within a manufacturer are siloed from both a technical perspective and a cultural perspective. And so, one of the things that we set out for Vertex was, could we solve some of these both technical and cultural siloing issues, make it really easy to get design in front of the right people and get it early and often. I think that's really what makes a design truly good, is if you can really iterate on that feedback quickly. The other thing that we see within the companies that we talk to is just, it sounds like to solve these challenges, just give everyone access to PLM. And in fact, oftentimes, we'll be talking to PLM admin and they say, yeah, I don't have these issues. Everyone has access to my PLM. Well, sure. In reality, how many people are actually going into PLM? The last bullet point there that I'll talk about is also, what's the user experience for that person coming into your PLM system? Like, if they're not in there every day, it's kind of a foreign entity, much like just any kind of system that you barely use. Think about like logging vacation time in your HR system, or in my case, approving HR time for John here. I like, unless I'm in there every day, like it's very hard and cumbersome for me to use. The other kind of reality about the digital thread is, and kind of along the lines of what I'm just talking about here, there's, I think that there's these, what we would call a system of record, which would be, let's say, like your PDM or PLM, that would be the system of record for your CAD parts, configurations, things like that. But then, there's also systems of record for ERP, MES, anywhere that's like the source of truth for a given system. But then, like I said, oftentimes getting in there and understanding that data, for example, like from a design engineering standpoint, if I wanted to go in and understand defect and warranty data, how easy is it for me to go in there and really dig in, get the data and determine, hey, we're working on the new next generation model. Which of these systems should I reuse? Do you have access to the digital thread in terms of that system of engagement, which really is, how easy is it for me to search and find that information, get access to that information, pull it out, process it. It's just very cumbersome if you're not in there every day. Next bullet point here, we often find that your product design data is just kind of trapped within that PLM system. And, there's all kinds of people outside of your department that would love to have access to that information. Field service, tech pubs, really being able to pull that data out, be able to pull up a serial number or a tail number or something like that, and get access to it and give feedback on that particular configuration or design. And oftentimes, like we just find that data is just trapped in there without any real system access. And I've already talked about the last one. So next slide, John. So the core problem across all of these issues that we see is just that product data is really hard to pull out of engineering. Not only is it hard to pull out of there, but it's also just hard to give access to that data that's secure, that's high quality, that has the right information for it. You're often, taking that data out, stripping it down, putting it into an interchange format, just so that you can, be able to FTP it or send, put it on a shared drive so that, someone that you're working with can open that data set with installed software. You better hope that they can install it with their IT privileges, and also having, a nice graphics card. Most people outside of design engineering won't have the same computers and workstations that they do. So that's kind of what we see there. So what Vertex does is kind of flip the problem on its head. Instead of trying to strip that data down so that you can share that file format, we put the file all of your CAD geometry in one spot and render it in place. And so if you need to send that data outside of engineering, and in this example, downstream to service to get feedback for serviceability, DFX, maybe from a customer engineering standpoint, being able to make sure that use of your product is actually serviceable. Instead of sending that entire technical data package with all of the geometry with it, you can simply just share a link, and Vertex will interactively render that geometry and just stream pixels back to the device. So they could be using an iPhone to review that design, to collaborate, give feedback, and John will demonstrate that here in a minute. Go ahead, John.
Absolutely. Thank you, Matt. So yeah, I'll walk through a couple of examples here. First, looking at some of the problems that we've seen in talking with customers, as well as both Matt and I, our experience, in previous roles that we've had, and myself in the previous manufacturing companies that we've had, looking at how do you stay connected with your design externally with suppliers and customers, internally with various manufacturing teams, service teams, and then how do you really handle the entire value chain all at once? And so this first subset that we're going to look at here particularly revolves around some of the challenges when it comes to design communication, design collaboration with your external partners, whether they be customers or suppliers. Again, one of the first things that we see come up time and time again is that there's a lot of wasted effort around sharing snapshots of engineering models. And I know this firsthand. The most recent role that I had before joining Vertex, I was relegated to this task time and time again, and it was very, very challenging for me to be able to take an engineering bill of material, find what I needed, take a snapshot, put it into PowerPoint or into a Word document or into the body of an email, and then send that out. Not only was that time consuming, but obviously lent itself to security issues. And then because of the fact that you're just using these static images to communicate externally with either a customer or supplier, you're really unable to, let's say from a customer standpoint, understand the constraints perhaps in their product. If you're looking upstream perhaps to an OEM, or if you're looking at to an end user, the ability to be able to use and function with that product becomes difficult to understand the constraints around that. Also, one term you'll hear quite often with the supply chain is this early stage involvement, being able to reach out to your supply chain and being able to pass information before you've gotten too firm in your design to understand, number one, can the supply chain make this efficiently? Can they make it to cost? Can they achieve economies of scale with this design in order for me to realize the best price, let's say? And so it really hampers your ability to be able to involve the supply chain when you are continually stymied with the inability to get product data to your suppliers. And in this case here, you'll see highlighting, we've been able to work successfully here with Terex to be able to help them get this product data out to their customers in order to be able to look at different configurations and make sure that they are adequately supplying the needs of their customers there. And I'll show that here in a little bit. So I've kind of hit on some of the problems there externally. If we think about some of the problems internally, those revolve around the inability to be able to efficiently complete design reviews for your major milestones. And that's, again, brought up on the fact that it's very, very time consuming and in some cases nearly impossible to pull in a complete design and to be able to view that in one setting and in one way, and so that everyone can view the complete design and be able to understand the constraints and to efficiently pass through the needed requirements for those milestone reviews. We see that this causes further, if you're looking at maybe reaching out to manufacturing, a key component that would often trip our product development team up in some of the previous companies that I was at was really the discussions with manufacturing around design for assembly, design for manufacturing, and being able to iterate on the product design before you hit design freeze, before iron was cut, so to speak, to be able to ensure that this thing can be made, it can be assembled, and that it will not cause undue ergonomic problems and repeatability issues in order to be able to put this together on the assembly line. This last one here kind of hits upon a pretty important one, is really the inability to collaborate with service. We've seen, again, and I've lived this through, and we've talked to multiple customers about this, is another barrier when it comes to internal connected designs is the inability to get it to your service teams, for them to be able to provide input on what makes sense for kitting, what makes sense for repairing. Can they repair it? Do they have the tooling that they need to repair it? Do they have to go and order special tooling in order to repair that design? And so, we've looked at internally and externally. Well, let's take a moment and think about sort of this, the entire value chain here. And we've looked at maybe one scenario or two scenarios there at a time. Well, what happens if you get multiple different business units and requests coming in with needs, changes, issues that need to be resolved, and then you have to flow that throughout your entire value chain, through all the different organizations, through all the different checks and balances, so to speak, on perpetuating a change or creating something new in there. So it becomes very difficult to manage simultaneous requests, particularly when it comes to the heavy burden to take product data that you can't free out of the engineering systems, and to create snapshots, create all kinds of different communication that then gets siloed from the source of truth. And that leads this then to the inability to be able to keep up with current data. What if your models go through major revision in the middle of communicating with the supply chain or a customer? What if you all of a sudden are discussing an issue that's a revision too late already, and there's something new, and so all this work and wasted effort is spent around fixing something that has already changed since the time you started collaborating on it. And so in general, this leads to broken and non-existent communication with the extended enterprise. And so now what I'll do is just step out of this here and step into a brief demo here. And for this demo here, we're going to be looking at our Vertex Connect in here. And again, for those who maybe have joined some of the other webinars, have seen, we operate with a zero install, totally cloud-based, 100% cloud-based software here. So web-enabled browser will get you into the interface that you need to access this. And I'm just going to quickly sign on here. We've got the ability to do so with single sign-on, making that intro into the software even more seamless. And so that'll start pulling up here, and you'll see one of the first screens that we get to here is what's called a My Workspace. You can also construct this to do different team workspaces, maybe if you're working on different projects or just looking for a spot to bring in individual models here. So again, no web install was needed to get to this point, just simply a user name and password to get in. So one of the things that I routinely struggled with in some of my previous roles was just the ability to bring in different formats into my marketing issued laptop, if it were, and I didn't have the computing power to do that, or I would have to have somebody put it into a neutral format. What we enable here with the Vertex app is to be able to bring in multiple different file formats, neutral file formats, as well as very specific file formats. We're able to read all of that in, eliminating those cumbersome steps of having to reformat a file or strip it down, so to speak, in order to get it into a format. Here, a set of stories, and this as story, a list, as you can see here, is just various different packages of snapshots taken from the engineering bill of material to create this sort of collaborative experience where you can communicate with the extended enterprise on any solution. And as Matt was previously showing you or talking to you earlier, we've got the ability, because of how we're set up on the back end, to be able to stream images from the cloud across multiple servers. We're able now to interact with any size of model. And you can see here, I've been able to pull in and interact with this large submarine here, complete with its full bill of materials. And so if I were to now step through the story, you'll be able to see that now I've got kind of this interactive 3D viewer where I can view comments that somebody has made. Perhaps they've, retaken a snapshot, so to speak, of a certain view with some comments and some measurements. And we've been able to understand very quickly, again, with the data coming directly out of your PLMs here, what the issue is. One thing I didn't mention at the outset that I will here is that we have a couple of different ways of getting models into this application here. Either you can directly import them off of your PLM system into this workspace, or we do also provide APIs that will call in this information at a set time, whether it be weekly, daily, monthly, or as new model revisions come in, to be able to make sure you're collaborating on the right set here. So you can see we're able to handle large model sizes very efficiently here. We're also able to, let's take a look at another example here. Let's say we're wanting to communicate downstream or out to our customers about some different specification options. Well, with a story within our application here, our Connect application, we're able to put together different option scenarios. If you look back here at the rear spoiler, you can see a couple of different options that we're showing there, option 1B, option 1C, here with quite a flat spoiler. So again, just a very easy, dynamic, and simple user interface to be able to communicate around your design. So again, the basis with the Connect app is being able to communicate and collaborate on your product design. So let me just step back for just a brief moment and show you real quickly how we got to this point of being able to create some of these snapshots. As I mentioned before, we have, maybe you've got multiple things coming in. Let's say we've got service, and service has uncovered an issue perhaps with some of their suspension. And let's just role play this out a little bit. If we went through a model change and we put a heavier engine into this vehicle, for instance, and all of a sudden now service is starting to see some issues in the field that they're constantly having to go back and fix on. So service was able to get into this design here through the Connect app, and they were able to put together a very telling story of exactly what the problem is here. So perhaps, they put in some photos here in the comments section as well, and they've indicated, we're seeing some springs break, the load of the engine is too great, and they're wanting to filter that now back to engineering. So let's say engineering gets this, and they want to now go to the model and now collaborate with perhaps a different way of putting that engine in. And they need to understand, can my supplier take it? Well, let's say that this supplier here now is unable to perhaps supply the big enough brakes to handle a different engine load being put in there. And so we'll just quickly here take a look at this. And again, when you bring in a model, it'll come in full with its complete bill of material. And if we wanted to just quickly look at some of the different metadata that comes in as well. Since that comes in with your bill of material, we're able to search upon that metadata in here. And if we wanted to just filter by supplier, we could do so as well. And that will pull up, a list of suppliers here that you could choose from, making it very easy for you to search quickly down to a supplier. For the sake of time here, I've already just created a quick way to get what we need to look at. And if we very quickly just wanted to take a look at this wheel up here, and we wanted to understand, what does my braking system look like up here? And what I'll do is I'll just add a quick cross section, and then I'm going to sweep through and coming up to the front part here. Into this area, and I'm going to zoom in down here and take a look at what I've got going on in here. And so you can kind of see some what looks like to be some interference in this area with the brake pad. So let's say I want to quickly just denote that with a markup. I'm going to put a circle here, call that out, and say interferences noted here. And I'm going to save that markup there. So what that's going to do now is it's going to create this snapshot. And what I can do now that I've got this snapshot put together here is bundle several different snapshots together. Let's just say I want to select this one. I want to select this one. I also want to look at some of the rear suspension since that's what services said. And I'm going to create now a story. I can come in here and create my story saying, new suspension, and I'll add in here, please take a look. Now, what I can also do once I've created this story now is be able to set different security levels. I can enable export of that particular snapshot, the model within that snapshot. I can enable measurement. I can enable cross-sectioning in there. So I'm going to enable cross-sectioning for that one. And now I'm able to very easily, just with putting in an email, securely share that out either to customer upstream or a supplier, or perhaps to any internal teams that I would like to be able to communicate there as well. One last thing that I'll just quickly show here before we wrap up is the ability now to take different models across, let's say, your enterprise, and be able to communicate that. I think one of the big things that we've heard as a challenge from some of the customers we've worked with is the ability to pull in different models. Say you're the hose designer or you're the frame designer for a machine, being able to pull all that together in a very simple way to be able to view the design in one spot. And so we've got the ability now to be able to pull multiple models together regardless of file type. So if I were just to come in here and start selecting multiple models here of these, you can see one's an engine, one's the exhaust assembly for this car, one contains the seat. And I'm just going to simply hit merge. I'm going to create a new file, supercar merged. And I'm going to create this new file based off of all these individual assemblies that I want to be able to do that. So you'll see now that that is coming in here. So again, a very easy way. And then once that model has been created to do that now, so I've got this new model created here, I can come in and view that model in its entirety, be able to take some snapshots, create a story, and communicate with a customer on this new engine that we want to put in their supercar to make sure it meets their needs. So I see our time is up here. Just a real quick view about how we really enable the ability to communicate on design across your entire value chain. And so I don't know, Matt, if we had any questions or we've got any time for questions come through there, we'll take those now.
No, John, if you could just wrap up in the interest of time. If you do have questions, if you're interested in a free trial, John and I would be happy to talk to you in depth. We can also talk through how we connect to your PLM system and how you could really take advantage of the Vertex platform to enable your connected product design. With that, thank you very much. We'll be having a couple more webinars coming up in the next few weeks, and please join us for those.
Absolutely. Thank you.